Hey, it's Hawken with TOPDON. Today we're going to do a video walkthrough on the new TC002C Duo. Now this camera has brought a feature that many people have been asking for. Why can't I use every USB-C device with Apple and Android? Well, unfortunately that does not always work, but the good news is that the TC002C Duo does work with both Android and iOS devices. So that means now your Apple phone, your iPad, your Android tablet, as well as your Android phone will all work with this one camera. This of course simplifies if you happen to have more than one device of different type. Now you can use just one camera with both. The other benefit here is that the TC002C Duo also works with a PC software that is available on TOPDON.com. So should you wish to use it with your Windows PC, you can also do that. Pretty cool, right? So let's just take a quick look at the things that are included with the actual camera. Of course, you get the padded carrying case just like you do in previous tools. All of our other small thermal imagers are like this. You get the camera itself. Now we also include the necessary cables for both USB-C as well as Lightning. So you can use this with Lightning phones as well, which is pretty cool, right? You get a cleaning cloth here inside the container or the package. And then of course, you have your box as well. So convenient, compact, easy to take with. Now, one other accessory I just want to point out to you while we're talking about the TC002C Duo is this convenient, not included, this is an add-on, but a great add-on. This here is, as you can see, a little clamp protector case specifically for the cameras that we make. So what we can do with this is simply take this off, put our camera inside the case, and then clip it back on. And this is going to allow you to mount the camera specifically to your phone without having to hold the camera. So if we take, for instance, our phone like this, take our phone out. Of course, I have a big, fat, chunky phone, so it's spring-loaded, so it takes a little bit of effort, but you want that so it doesn't fall off. And now you can mount it to the back of your phone like this, and you can connect it either way, right? We can flip the camera upside down, or we can leave the camera as is, and we can connect the cable, plug it into the phone. Now we have an easy way. Most people are going to move the camera farther up on the body of the phone, so then you can basically just hold your phone easily and aim the camera wherever you want. But this makes it much easier to be able to aim the camera without having to hold it, and of course just route the cable directly into the phone. The other thing you'll obviously note on many phones is that of course the case blocks you from being able to plug the camera in directly. So having a case like this, where you can put the camera inside and then plug it in, is going to make your life just a little bit easier for not having to try and hold on to multiple things at once. Now, of course, that's only for phones, not for tablets, but it is available for phones as a separate purchase, and I just wanted to point that out in this video since a lot of people are not aware of this particular accessory for the thermal cameras. And it does fit many of the other units that we have. Pretty much any of them that you see with a form factor that looks like this will fit inside the case for the phone. So just wanted to point that out while we were doing the introduction on this particular tool. So today we're going to go ahead and set up over on a tablet on a vehicle and just walk you through all of the different buttons on the app, kind of do a buttonology if you will, show you all of the different menus and what you might use them for. Let's go ahead and get into the live tablet demo of the software. All right, so now we're going to take you through the app on an Android tablet here. So on this particular tablet, we can see it's laid out in the vertical format. Once you connect the camera, you'll have the option to enable thermal imaging. It's important to keep in mind that the app may ask you for permission on a few different things that you will need to approve the first time you connect. So we're just going to walk through the menus one by one here. So the first thing we're going to show you is actually the AI assistant. Now this is a beta function on the tool. It is not, shall we say, officially debuted or whatnot, but it does have a number of different pretty cool stuff that you can do. We're not going to try to show you all of it today, but we will show you the vehicle detection section since most of my experience is related to automotive. So what we see here is there are some parameters that it asks us to check and modify right away. So basically the distance of the camera from the objects you're checking the temperature on, as well as the ambient temperature, so the room that you're in or the environment, and also the emissivity of the components you are looking at. So you can Google search emissivity of various substances and it will tell you roughly what they are, but that is important if you are looking to get really accurate measurements. So we're going to confirm, just leave it on default for this demonstration. Now, when we go to AI detection down here, you have up on the top, there are different components you can select. So depending on what automotive component you are trying to get a baseline general parameter for, we're just going to select ignition coil, and you see here it gives us a baseline of 40 to 70 degrees Celsius. So I don't know if I'll be able to reach to see a coil, but basically if you were to aim this at an ignition coil and look for your crosshairs in the center of the screen, you could look at that and verify that the baseline temperature of that component falls within this general parameter that is given. Now if we hit the little I, they also give you a little bit of a description here, just kind of laying out, hey, this is what it means, etc. So you have some kind of a concept why this information is here and what it means. So again, the AI detection does have a bunch of different components listed here for general things. A lot of common components that you can look at with a thermal imager in order to get kind of a baseline idea of if something is way out of whack. Of course, this is not gospel, right? There are always possibilities that there are vehicles with components that may fall outside of the norm as a normal case. So just remember, it's meant for help, not for definitive answers. Additionally, we'll go back here on the main screen. If we use the AI detection, it does have the ability to try and do this automatically, and it will be a purchase or a feature that you can add on or purchase as well if you want to have that as part of your subscription, or you want to make that a part of your subscription for the thermal imager. Of course, it's not required in any way. It's more of an add-on feature if you want to use it. Now, from this main hub here, if we go back to this button in the bottom center, that takes us back to our normal thermal imaging launch pad. And then we also can access our thermal imaging gallery here, as well as any reports that we have generated with the tool, although I have not. And then we also have some tutorial kind of area information here, or settings area, which we can put in the temperature correction factor. So if you look here, basically you have some baselines for emissivity and things of that nature. So we can change any of these, or change our emissivity and our distance. All of this stuff can be modified to compensate so we get more accurate temperature measurements. Again, in most cases, unless you're very concerned about accuracy, you're probably not going to play around with this too much. Now, again, if you're doing scientific measurements and you need high precision, then you do need to compensate for those values. Image calibration is what you can see here, basically going to compensate for screen anomalies or things of that nature. If there is any kind of burn-in or something of that nature in the screen, that is something that can happen. The camera can also get what kind of looks like a ghosted edges. So the calibration is something that you can perform periodically if you start to get kind of those ghosted edges on your images. The distance unit, of course, is just changing between metric and feet. Temperature units, again, just going to be changing between Kelvin, Celsius, and Fahrenheit. So pretty straightforward there. You can change and then save your settings afterwards. And then you can also tell the app if it is supposed to automatically boot after you plug in the camera. And then of course you can also check your firmware there as well. So if you have the current version of firmware, the tool can allow you to update it if it's not the current version of firmware. So again, firmware check right here. And that does apply to not only the TC002C Duo, but also like the TS004 scope and such. So we'll go back here. And again, we got to that down through the learn more right here in the bottom right corner. So now we'll take you into kind of the heart of the tool, which is by this lens right here in the bottom center. And we're going to go into enable thermal imaging, and that's going to boot up the camera. Now again, the camera always asks you right in the app, do you want to modify any of these parameters right out of the gate before you start doing anything else? We're just going to leave it as is because again, we're not trying for precision measurements right now. We're just doing a demonstration. Now you can see we can also get back to the AI detection here if we want to. Otherwise, we have the option for taking photos and taking videos. If we switch, you can see the little play or capture button turns into a red button for video. and it stays a white button for pictures. Additionally, we have a couple other things in the top right corner here you do want to pay attention to. We have the TISR button, which is essentially for enhancing the image. So I'll turn it off. You can see the image gets a little bit less defined and a little more blurry, and we turn it back on, sharpens up a little bit better contrast, right? If we click this other little button in the top right, again, this is where we can shortcut to changing our parameters for distance, emissivity, and temperature of the ambient environment. Again, that's the very top right, this little thermometer kind of icon. Now, as we work through here, we also see we can shortcut to our gallery here if we want to look at any pictures we've taken previously. And then we also have this button right here, these two dots. This allows us to play with if we want to shoot rapid fire sequences of images. That's this little button right here. We have automatic lens. So basically this changes the shutter to automatic to manual. And that's something you probably just want to leave on automatic as a general statement. You can also add audio to some of the video if you want. And then additionally, we have the button here, which takes you into modifying for burst shooting. So again, you can see burst shooting is something we can turn on, and that allows us to shoot a sequence of images all rapidly. Then we also have the watermark, which you can turn on if you would like it to be printed on all of the images that you are using. So that takes us through that button right there, those two dots. We'll move the cable out of the way if I can get it to kind of snake out of the way there. Of course, it doesn't want to cooperate, so I'm going to move the camera over here. So as we look through the rest of the menus, there are obviously a number of other buttons here. So in the bottom left corner, if we click on that, you're going to see just our standard camera layout, if you will. As we click on this other one here that looks kind of like a crosshairs, this is going to allow us quite a few different options as far as how we display information on the screen and what temperature measurements we're going to be making. So the full image is just going to pick the hot and the cold spot in the image as its total picture. If we do the dot, we can literally pick points on the screen to monitor. As you can see here, it just adds more and more dots. If we want to clear those out, we just go here and hit the delete button, and then we can go back to full image. If, however, we would like to monitor something in a line, say for instance we want to see if anything changes across a plane of axis, we can draw a line on the screen and it will monitor that continuously until we clear that out. Then we can also do a plane, which actually allows us to draw effectively like a box. So if we have a component that we want to target and monitor the temperature of, we can draw a box around it, and then we can have clear temperature monitoring of that very specific area on the screen for as long as we want. And then of course we can clear that out. And then if we want to see a trend chart to see the temperature actually graphed, we can draw an image on the screen or a line like this, and then it will literally graph it over time. Now, if you wanted to use your screen record on your phone or tablet to record that graph, you could also do that. So pretty cool stuff if you want to be able to monitor something. Maybe you set this thing up and you're going to set it up so that it can be aimed at maybe a thermostat to see if a thermostat is opening. That'd be a great thing that you could do. You could draw a line basically through the thermostat and monitor the temperature to see if the thermostat is in fact opening when it is supposed to. Additionally, as we continue on here, we do have a couple other things. We have the picture-in-picture, which takes advantage of the actual camera itself within the tablet, which of course is aimed at the vehicle right now, basically aimed straight down. So we can't really overlay it right now, but if we were to align the picture with the thermal camera as well as the camera on the tablet, we could do a level of picture-in-picture that could add some clarity as to what we're looking at. Transparency just allows us to adjust that picture-in-picture to make it more opaque or less opaque. So then we continue on down to the three little dots here on the bottom, and that's going to allow you to change your temperature gradient. So if we're looking at the temperature gradient here, we have a bunch of different color schemes we can use. So if you prefer a different color scheme, you can change that. I would recommend that, find which one you like and then try to stick with that regularly, because ultimately it's good to compare things in a way that makes sense to you. So if you're familiar with a certain particular way that it's displaying, try to stick with whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you know best. That's going to result in the easiest way of interpreting what you're seeing on the screen. Then we've got our settings button here. There's some more things that we can change specifically. I'm just going to set the camera down so I can take you through those a little better here. Basically, we have our color bar, which is going to show us the scale representing the different colors. So this is going to give you the correlation between which color represents the higher temperature. So if I aim it at myself here, you can see I'm warmer than the environment around me. Over here, you can see this is the cooler temperature. So that's what they call the pseudo color bar. That just gives you the translation of the color to the represented relative temperature. Then we have contrast. And if we turn the contrast up or down, you can see what it's going to do to the image. So it's going to make it, watch me breathing here. Breathe in cooler air. You can see my nostrils actually get cooler. And so there's quite a bit of contrast improvement if you turn that up. If you prefer to make it less dynamic, you can turn the contrast quite a bit down. Usually most people leave it kind of somewhere in the middle. 50% is about the average of the way most people like to configure it. Additionally, if we go over to the details, you can turn the detail dial up or down to make the image more detailed or less. So you can see it gets a little bit more watered down, kind of like someone drew it with watercolors, instead of, if we turn it all the way up, you can see it's very detailed. You can even see my facial hair, which is pretty detailed, right? We can also set an alarm. So if, for instance, we have something on the screen that is deviating inside or outside a specific temperature threshold, so in other words, if we want to set an alarm for a temperature exceeding a certain threshold or going below a certain threshold, we can set those, and then we can actually have an alarm come on, which is pretty cool. We also have the ability to, if you tap on these here, you can change the colors. So if you want to be able to use those for kind of hallmarks or whatnot for those points, you can. You can also use a ringtone to alert yourself. So if we do that, we'll see if it makes a noise here when I tap it. It's pretty quiet, but yeah, I've got the volume turned down quite a bit. But essentially, if we had something that we were trying to monitor, maybe we're working in a shop and we want to see if something happens like a draw. If we had used our box to draw a box around the fuse block, and then we set a temperature threshold and we know what the ambient temperature is, we could basically say, hey, if the temperature of anything inside that box goes up above a certain temperature, set the alarm off. Now, the tablet will actually make a sound when something happens like that. So as you can see, that could be a pretty awesome and super helpful feature. So I just turn that back off because we're not going to use that right now. But basically you can turn on the markers that warn you of when it's actually happening with colors, and then you can also turn on an alarm to alert you if it does in fact deviate beyond a certain tolerance. So again, pretty awesome there as far as what you can do inside that. Again, that was the alarm setting right here inside the little gear. Additionally, we can rotate the image. So if you would like to rotate the image so that it's oriented differently here, we'll aim it back at the stuff under the hood. We can rotate the image on the screen, and there we're back to our normal aim right there. Additionally, we can change the font. So if you want to change the color of the font and or the type, like the size here, you can modify or manipulate that if you want, which is obviously nice. So lots of latitude and customization available here. And then mirroring, as you can see here. We're just going to turn that on and off. See how it flips the image around? So basically you can mirror the picture if you would like to flip the image around. And of course that's useful if you are aiming the camera back towards the tablet itself, then that's a useful feature. So the last feature we have down here is this section here, which allows us to customize the temperature range. This is important if you want to have accurate measurements. You can turn on automatic recognition and it will automatically scale and adjust itself. So if you aim it at something much hotter, it will automatically change the scaling. If you are in the lower temperature range, it'll automatically change the scaling as long as it's set to automatic recognition. If you prefer to manually set it, like right now, I'm not looking at anything super high temperature, so that's perfectly fine. If I want to modify it to high temperature, then I can do that as well. And again, this is just going to change, as you can see here. You want to make sure that this is actually correct. It's going to ask you to check emissivity again, distance, and also the ambient temperature. So again, making sure all those parameters are set up correctly is important. And you can see that it changes the sensitivity of the unit when you raise the temperature threshold here. So again, quite a bit of a difference in the two images, right? As we switch it back to the low temperature range, you can hear the camera actually clicking, and you notice how it gets more sensitive because we're in the lower temperature range and we're working with lower temperature components. So again, very important to understand that manually switching this will affect how the image is displayed. So we'll go back here. So we've taken you through all of the menu options down on the bottom here, and you can see there's just a massive amount of value in this app as far as what we can do, all of the different parameters that we can look at, and so many things that we can inspect using this camera. So we can look at battery cables. So if you look over here, I'm aiming it right now. This is the positive battery post right here. So if we were concerned about possible high resistance in this battery connection here, we can aim the camera right at the positive battery post and see if there's any heat buildup here, which would indicate excess resistance in the connection. Over here at the negative battery terminal, I'm going to put my finger just above it. You can see that there is no excess heat buildup right there. So here's the cable itself. You can see that there is no excess heat buildup in that area. And of course, again, that's what we're looking for. So pretty awesome stuff with what you can do. Of course, the closer you get the camera to the object, the more detailed and clear the image becomes, and also the more sensitive it is based on the information you enter into the software. So that completes our general walkthrough of the app. We will also do a video showing you the walkthrough of the PC software, as it does also give you different capabilities on the PC software than what you will see here on the Android or iOS app. Again, it works on Android tablets, Android phones, Apple iPads, as well as Apple phones. So great compatibility. Again, we are doing the overview here of the TC002C Duo. So maximum compatibility and versatility here in a very convenient pocket-sized device. Thanks again for taking the time to watch our introduction video on the TC002C Duo. Again, this camera is compatible with both Android and iOS devices, as well as Windows PC devices. So we hope you're excited about this new tool. Of course, we would appreciate it very much if you would like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone you think would benefit from watching it. As always, I'm Håkan with TOPDON. We'll see you on the next video.